Hi guys, Jane here, and today I'm going to be reviewing A Mother's Reckoning, Living in the Aftermath of Tragedy by Sue Klebold. And this is a book written by the mother of one of the Columbine shooters, the mother of Dillon Klebold. And it is a book about her healing and her response and just kind of everything that she went through as a mother, from hearing what was happening and being concerned for her son's safety, to finding out her son was the perpetrator, to mourning his loss afterwards and discovering what had happened, and her later work with trying to promote suicide prevention, and just a lot of different things involving her journey as the mother of a child who had murdered other children. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. It is a good book. Me and one of my friends read it. We didn't quite do a buddy read, but we read it like back to back. She enjoyed it as much as I did. It was definitely so good, but so hard to read and so painful. It was especially personal and painful for me because I had lost a family member to suicide years back, and I also have a child who has some mental health issues. So it had hit me on both fronts as the mother of a child who could potentially do some awful things, and who is fighting their own internal demons, and also somebody who had lost a family member, because she looks at her son's death as a suicide, not so much a murder, which I know there's been some controversy. I've seen other people do reviews on that topic, and here's the thing. If you've read the journals of Dillon and Eric, and those are available online, or they were last I looked, because I had read them, Dillon is definitely more suicidal, whereas Eric is a lot more homicidal. And Sue does say in this, or does quote a doctor in this book, that Columbine could not have happened without Eric, because Eric was kind of the force of the mass murder part, whereas Dillon, he mostly wanted to just die and he kind of went along with it. I don't think she undermines his involvement in it, but at the same time, I have heard that criticized of this book, that she kind of put the majority of the blame on Eric. And again, I think if you've read the journals, it's hard not to, because Eric and Dillon were very different people. And yes, they both did terrible things, and they very pretty equally participated in the tragedy. I did a count up of how many of the injuries were and deaths were attributed to each person. I'm going to see if I can find that count up. And they were not completely even, but roughly. And this is based on the information in this book of the breakdown of events and who had killed or injured who. And there are 18 injuries slash deaths or injuries attributed to Eric. There are 11 attributed to Dillon, and there are 7 that are either that weren't attributed or that it was unsure, like maybe the boys both took shots at this person and they didn't really ever decide who killed him. So, I mean, fairly even. Both boys definitely caused a lot of death and destruction and did horrible things. And I don't think she ever says in this book that her son wasn't accountable. She got a lot of grief afterwards from other families, particularly saying, how could you not have known this was happening? How could you not have been prepared? How did you not stop this? And basically saying, what kind of mother lets this happen? And I think as a mother, that's a hard thing, because, Dillon was 17. He was months away from graduation. I mean, not even months, like it was April. So he was like 2 months from graduation and starting college. And I think when your kid is that old, you maybe don't monitor everything as much, because, I mean, they're 17, they're almost 18. He's almost a legal adult. So I feel like, she got a lot of people saying, how could you not have known this? But, how many people know exactly what their 17-year-old is and isn't doing? I mean, and he tried to hide it really well. So I don't think that she was really to blame for it. I know a couple reviews had mentioned that there was a paper he turned in that had some graphic writings in it, and that was something that she didn't see until afterwards. She'd been told by his teacher that there was some concerning stuff he turned in, but she didn't see that, and it was passed on to the counselor. And that's, I think, another thing is that a lot of people dropped the ball, if you will, here. There, Dillon and Eric were both in a program because they'd been caught stealing the year before, and it wasn't exactly probation, but something similar to that, like an aversion program to keep you from offending again. And they both got let out early on good behavior. So I mean, these kids were very, very deceptive to the adults around them. So I don't think that it was anything the parents could have known or could have prevented, even though, you know, Sue very much became an advocate for mental health and for, you know, understanding the signs of a suicidal child and trying to get involved in suicide prevention. I think that it's good that she did something positive in the aftermath, because I think a lot of people wouldn't have had the courage to do that. I mean, I don't know how you can go on after your child does something so terrible, and yet she manages to, and she's trying to help others. And that's kind of, I feel like, become her life's work, is to try to prevent tragedies. So, and it's also important to remember, whenever we see people having done terrible things, that those people are somebody's child. One of the things that really broke my heart in this book was, you know, she was obviously horrified that her son had done what he'd done, but she was a mourning mother as well. And a lot of people didn't treat her that way. They treated her like, you know, like basically like an offender as well, which is a horrible thing because she lost a child too. And yes, her son had been involved in it, her son had killed people, but she had still lost her baby that day, just like a lot of the other parents. And initially there were 15 crosses put up for all the lives lost, including Eric and Dillon. And one of the parents basically pulled them up and said, no, these people don't, these were the ones that killed our children, they don't get to be mourned. And I think that wasn't a very compassionate thing. I can understand that parent's anger, but at the same time, you know, Eric and Dillon's parents had lost a child too. And yes, their children had been the perpetrators, and that was awful, but they were mourning too. And they were just so grief-stricken by what had happened. So if you are interested in Columbine and the information about it, this is a really good book. There's a lot of insights. I also would recommend reading the journals of Dillon and Eric. They are, like I said, available online. Last I looked anyway, I had read them. It was a good book. A very heartbreaking read, but definitely worth it. Alright guys, social media, like and subscribe buttons all below. See you next time.